Another decision you made had a dramatic impact on your ministry, and that was that if people weren't coming to the church, you would go to the people.
Well, that's true. He would accept any invitation that came along, a Kiwanis club, a high school commencement, the various Rotary clubs and what have you, so that he would talk to people where they were. And I remember he went once to a businessmen's convention in New York City and was impressed with the fact that not enough men were coming to church. So he talked with them about their problems and where they were and the pressures that they were having to deal with.
One of the other things that you developed at that time was a philosophy that you would not pray to fill the seats of church, but you would pray to fill the souls of people with the gospel of God.
Bill, that is a wonderful statement. That is exactly what I did. And you have articulated it so plainly. That's the secret of success. Success might have seemed to have been to fill the pews, but if you fill people, they will fill pews. But you don't fill them full of the truth to make them come to church, but you fill them full in order that they may have real, meaningful, happy, worthwhile life. And I had a speaking agent in my church named Hal Pete. I went to him one day and I told him that I wanted to go outside in conventions. I figured that if I spoke to conventions, everybody who goes to a convention ultimately comes to New York as a visitor, or many to live permanently, and I would fill up the church thereby. And he said, well, you can't preach a sermon at a secular convention. I said, I know you can't, but he said, if you take this subject matter and secularize it enough so that it wouldn't offend people of a different religious faith. So he said, I'll send you out and see if you can do that. So he sent me up to Cattaraugus County, way up north, and to speak to a farmers' convention. And the man who met me at the Erie Railroad Station, I had to take a night train to get up there. He said, well, boys must be running low on money to get a preacher. I don't know how you'll fit the bill. If you pray, that's one thing, but speech, the principal speaker as a preacher, never had it in history. So I had taken a sermon and de-sermonized it enough that it was a speech, and I gave it, and on the way back to the train station, he said, you know, that was pretty good. Not bad at all. He said, you could make a sermon out of that speech. He didn't know that I made a speech out of a sermon. So I gradually worked up from the county level to the state level to the regional level to the national level, and I suppose I've made speeches to about as many business conventions in America as the next one. We've spoken to all kinds of conventions, from the American Bankers Association to the Domino Pizza Convention.
What prompted you to begin this one-man crusade to bring the American businessman closer to Jesus?
Bill, I was invited one night to speak to about 300 young rising businessmen of New York City. That's the way they were billed. And I sat between two nice fellows at the head table. So I said to the man on my right, do you go to church? Where do you go to church? Well, he said, my grandfather was a leader in the Presbyterian Church in Scarsdale, and my father was an active member of the Presbyterian Church. I said, I didn't ask you about your grandfather or your father. I asked you where you went to church. Well, he said, I get around on Easter, maybe at Christmas, but I have my religion in my wife's name. And I turned to the fellow on my left and I said, where do you go to church? Well, he said, I live in White Plains. I go to the Episcopal Church on Easter, like Bill here. I don't even go Christmas, I go Easter. I think the Lord wants me to show up at least once a year. And I said to these fellas, how many would you say are out there in this audience? They said about 300. Well, I said, what percentage of them do you think are church-going men practicing Christians? And they kicked the question around, and they finally agreed on about 25%. Well, somehow or other, that irritated me. And I walked all the way after that meeting from 50th Street down to 10th Street where I lived. That's about 2 miles. Who are these guys that they think they're superior to the great Christian church? I said that Christianity underscored the free enterprise system. They have their jobs because of Christianity. And I worked with myself all the way down. That next day I went to this fella, Hal, and told him I wanted to go into the speaking business. And I've been speaking to conventions for 60 years because that happened about 60 years ago. And I saw the day when we had 60% men in the church and 40% women. Now, I want to make it clear, Bill, I'm not opposed to women. But I think that if you get the men, you'll get the women. It doesn't seem to work. If you get the women, you get the men. But if you get the men, the women are so surprised that they flock to church to see what goes there.
And this in turn will influence the children, of course. And you've said that a sales meeting is only one step away from a spiritual meeting. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. I've spoken to a lot of sales meetings. It's the nearest thing to a Methodist or Baptist revival meeting that you can get. Because they come to these meetings because they want to do better. And the salesman learns that he does better if he is himself better. And I was speaking in Australia one time, and the biggest car salesman in Australia said, I'm a member of the Church of England here in Australia, but we don't mention it in secular meetings. But you Americans, you talk to salesmen and you always mention God, and you even mention Jesus Christ. Why do you do that? He said, I'm in favor of it, but we don't do it. Why do you do it? Because I said, we don't think that a human personality can reach its greatest potential unless it is touched by God and Jesus Christ, who can make a man or a woman into what he or she is supposed to be. He said, "Why don't you wake us up?" Well, I said, "Why do you think we're here talking in Australia?"
Our conversation with Dr. Peale and his wife Ruth will continue in just a moment.